Welcome back to The Chosen Life. I'm your host, The Chosen Lawyer, and today we have two special guests. It's always fun when we have multiple guests on at the same time. Believe it or not, if I was to shave off my beard, I think I would look very much like this gentleman here. We are brothers from different mothers because we have common illnesses, including watches and cars. Mr. Paul, BigFatPauli, and his wife, Gina. Paul and Gina, welcome to The Chosen Life.
How you doing? Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate, or having us, I should say.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
A pleasure. And we all wore different colors altogether, so that's awesome. So we sometimes I coordinate with the guests, it turns out, but it's fun when we have multiple colors. So we're rainbow today. And I put up the Chosen Life shirt so people can remember what I look like if they don't stare directly at my face. It's funny that I'd known Paul for some time. So we met originally through a watch collecting website. This is called a watch illness website, because when you start to love timepieces or watches as we do, it literally feels like an illness. And the only thing that will cure the illness is more, and more. But we became really good friends from there. Met, I believe, your cousin as well through there. So it becomes a real family thing, you know, when you develop a love for a hobby, a spectacle. And in our case, it was watches.
Yeah, we've known each other for a few years now, I guess. And we kind of struck up more of a friendship, you're doing virtual get-togethers, and they were great. Frankly, I miss those. So it'd be nice to maybe get those back going, or in-person get-togethers and stuff like that, because it was nice hanging out with you back then.
Well, if I recall originally, the person who came up with the idea of the virtual get-togethers during the COVID times was actually you. You'd posted, if I'm not mistaken. And then we had to figure out who had a Zoom account. I had the Zoom account. And whenever you volunteer your Zoom account, you become the organizer de facto after that. And so I started getting all this credit for doing these wonderful get-togethers, but you were the one who actually came up with the idea originally. So kudos to you.
You're too kind.
And
but it was a team effort. How about that?
It's whenever you do those get-togethers, you know, it's funny, like in person or virtual, whenever you organize something like that, you get RSVPs, you know, even if it's a professional event, right? We've all been there in our respective industries. You don't always know how many people or who's showing up. Sometimes you get like 12 people, 20 people. And then eventually, if you're doing a similar thing every month, once you get to the point that it's you and one other person or two other people max, you're like, I think we've hit our plateau here, and now it's time to disband for a little while. That was my thoughts on it. But sometimes you have to leave it for a little bit, I think, and then come back, and then it becomes more exciting again.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's probably time.
So I've two questions, Paul. We're gonna kind of siphon off to different topics today. You both have your respective industries, as far as Paul in the watch world and collecting and always sharing his thoughts. He's never shy about opinions on watchmakers or new releases. And Gina in the world of fitness, Gina being a personal trainer and nutrition coach, which is, so you guys cover almost all my spectrums of hobbies and interests and lifestyles. So I was so excited because we're going to run the gauntlet today. Starting off with Paul today. First question is, taking a look at you. Don't know if you looked in the mirror or not, but BigFatPauli, I don't see it. So how did you develop this nickname of BigFatPauli, please?
Yeah, definitely. So it was actually when I was in university, I worked at Radio Shack. And if anybody's ever worked in a mall, there's a certain ecosystem when you work in a mall. You kind of get to know the other people who work there. And it's a bit of a TV show, to be honest. There's a lot of really interesting personalities, and you make some friends, you make some enemies, that kind of stuff. And in university, I was 113 pounds. So I'm still a pretty thin guy, but I was like just skin and bones. And so it was an ironic thing. I was 113 pounds, so the nickname was just BigFatPauli, because it just kind of stuck. Like people started calling me that. One of the people who worked at one of the mall engraving places actually made me a flask. This is BigFatPauli, and it just kind of, at the time, I got into wristwatches a bit more, and sort of found my people, I guess, on the internet. So that was kind of the username that I used, and it's just always been there. So it's a relic from the past. It's always been ironic. I've never been overweight. But it's just kind of part of my identity now. So it's just one of those silly things, you know?
I had always pictured, because when I look at you, I kind of feel like we could be cousins or brothers even. We have like a similar face shape. Just again, the beard kind of hides that a little bit.
You're a little better looking, but yeah.
I wish, but you have better hair. But I had figured you probably had a similar story to mine. It's funny when you hear a name or you see somebody, you just automatically build a story in your mind. And I figured you must have either been overweight as far as a youngster growing up, or maybe for me, it was later on in adulthood. I'd always been a certain weight my whole life. And then in my 30s, it went on me. I let my lifestyle go completely, and I was quite overweight. And then I worked to fix it, and then I've stayed on that track since then. So I didn't know if you had that type of thing. So this was really just a case of irony.
That's it.
Now I got to ask you then, as 113 pounds, how tall are you? About 6 feet?
5'10". Yeah.
Okay. Because you can't tell in these virtual get-togethers, but a couple times he stood up, Gina, and I'm like, he's pretty tall, I would say. So I have a buddy that growing up in grade school, he was 6 feet tall. Okay.
Yeah.
He weighed barely 110 pounds. He's the only person I've ever seen be able to do this. And he could take his thumb and his pinky, connect at the wrist, and go all the way down to his elbow. That's how skinny he was.
No, not even. I can't even. No. No way. Nuh-uh. No.
So he's a doctor now, but his parents used to send him to school every day with egg bread, sandwich, mustard, and salami. He always gave away the salami, and he just ate mustard and egg bread every single day. That was his meals. Like, even like when you walked into his mom's car for carpooling, it smelled like egg bread, and that's all the person ate, you know, from a pure carb diet. Yeah. And just literally skin and bones. And I've never seen anybody be able to do that otherwise. And I'm like, buddy, you need to get some protein into you, please. Gina's looking like in bewilderment right now. Can you imagine?
I'm like, I can't even do that. And I'm like, how small? Paul and I are like switched weights actually since that story.
Amazing. So now how long have you two known each other for?
High school. We were high school sweethearts. So we've been married 19 years.
That's beautiful.
We've kind of just always been together. We struck it up. She was one of the cool kids. I was not. We had spare together, and basically I just badgered her into going out with me. Is kind of the short of it. We actually connected over video games, believe it or not.
Do you remember which ones?
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead? Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII. He pretended he didn't know how to play it, so I would show him because it was one of my favorites, and he didn't like it. So, or was it 8? Sorry, 8.
It was 8. Yeah.
It was
Final
8.
Fantasy 8.
Anything to get the girl, man. I legitimately wasn't very good at it, but it was her favorite.
You still aren't good at it.
No.
And now at home, do you call him BigFatPauli, or did that nickname ever stick for you, or do you more brush that one off?
No, I never. That was always his other life. I never called him that. So.
Okay, so we all have our bizarre worlds and our real universe. So from there, how soon into life, Paul, tell us the stories. Every watch collector aficionado that I bring on, the first question or second question has to be, when did the bug bite you? So when did you get into the hobby, into the profession? Tell us your story, please.
Yeah, definitely. I for sure had it forever. I'm definitely one of those guys that was born with it. My grandfather was a bit of a watch collector. My dad was a bit of a watch collector. And it's funny because it's sort of one of those things I've always had a love for and it's kind of an interest in. I never really consciously was aware of it until later on. But I mean, it was a couple of years ago. I was back home at my parents' place for Christmas, and I was looking through old photo albums. And there's a picture of me. I'm at Disneyland, and I must be 4 years old or something like that. And I remember it. I got my first water-resistant watch. I really, really wanted a watch that was water-resistant. Don't know why, but I really did. And I'm sitting on a couch and I'm pointing at my wrist to the camera. And so I'm like a little guy. So it's just like it was in my guts for whatever reason. And it's always been there. And I think I didn't know my grandfather very well. He passed away when I was pretty young. But my father was always a watch collector, but sort of kind of in a way, almost the watch collector we all kind of aspire to be. In the sense of when he was in Europe, he worked at a pretty nice hotel, and the owner of Bucher used to come in and would tip them with gift cards to the store. And so when he decided to immigrate to Canada in '67, he had a stack of gift cards, and he went in and he said, I've got so much money. I need a really good watch because I'm moving to a different country. I'm moving to Canada. What's something that's just going to last? And they said, oh, sir, we've got just the watch for you. And it was a Rolex. It was actually an Oyster. It was a model called a Zephyr, which is not super common, but so he bought it, and he wore that same watch for 35 years. And he collected other stuff along the way, Gerard Perregaux and Cartier and Raymond Weil and stuff like that. But the Rolex was always the thing that he had, and it really lasted his whole life. And And later on in life, he ended up getting a Reverso and a few other things. But that was his watch. So it's kind of, he was that one watch guy, like truly in who he was. And I think we all kind of wish we could get to that, but somehow it just never can. So it's always been there. I was really lucky because my grandfather was he was big into Jaeger LeCoultre, or JLC, or Jaeger LeCoultre, however you want to pronounce it. And so I'm actually his namesake, so we have the same name. And in 1958, he bought an original Geophysic, which, like, the original, they only made 1,000 or something like that. And there's a picture of him holding me as a baby wearing the watch. And it's so cool because today I have that watch and I'm technically the original owner by name. So it's kind of a unique thing to have that kind of lineage with that. And my father actually gave it to me when I was working at Radio Shack, when I got the nickname. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what a Geophysic was. I hardly knew what the brand was at the time. And I was wearing it, putting out stock and putting my hands into boxes and kind of wearing this watch pretty hard, which is a super desirable, super sought after watch, not realizing what it was. And actually the first post on any watch forum I posted was, has anyone seen this before? And it was on Time Zone. And it was of that watch. I was trying to identify, what model is this? Can anybody tell me anything of it? And at the time, almost nobody seemed to know what it was. They said, oh, cool looking watch. Don't know, not sure. There was one guy looking back, I actually checked this morning to see, who mentioned, oh, it's a Geophysic, and that's all they said. And actually some guy sent me a direct message on Time Zone saying, oh, do you want to sell it? I was like, no, it's an heirloom, that kind of stuff. So it's since been well taken care of. It's been serviced and cleaned up a bit and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was, so I'm very lucky to have that kind of in my family. Like it's always been there.
And Dad's Rolex, where's that one at?
He still has it.
He still has it.
He's still alive and kicking, and that's his. So it's yeah, he definitely still has it, and that's his watch. So it's nice. He has it engraved on the back with his name, and it's perfect for him.
So you remember the movie Pulp Fiction, obviously.
Yes.
And Christopher Walken with the story when he brings the guy, it was to Bruce Willis, the pocket watch that he carried with him through the war in his behind, and the whole story behind it. And I figured, you're telling me now, grandfather, father, collectors, there's gonna be some kind of story it's coming. So
there was no no one behind stories, but
that's amazing. Definitely. When I hear people's stories, I'm sure the listeners right now are as well. And I would tell everybody, please, besides hitting the subscribe button, obviously the notification bell, is, put in your comments. And when you're hearing the stories of Paul and Gina, let's hear your stories as far as watches and training, fitness, and, can you relate to it? And we can pass along the comments, certainly, and if you have any questions as well. Because I always knew my watch story as my first nice watch, getting it in high school. But now tracing back to it, I remember from very early on, I had like the transformer watch, where like you pick it off and you can turn it into a transformer and then pop it back onto its shell. And I had a Pac-Man watch where you can play Pac-Man on the watch, and a million watches. So like, I guess, looking back from the time I was even 6, 7, I always had a watch. I just never thought of myself as a watch person. And my brother came to me in high school in grade 10, and he said to me, now it is time for you to have a nice watch, not a child anymore. And so he took me to the mall, and we got a Tag Heuer two-tone quartz. That was my first nice, quote unquote, nice watch. And how many people start off with a Tag or a Breitling, as the gateway, so to speak?
For sure. Was it a Link with the the Link bracelet they had at the time? It wasn't one of those.
Absolutely.
You avoided that trend.
Problem was with the Link was it was so popular that there were so many fakes out there. So it was no point in buying a real Link when every single person had a fake Link. So I got more the sports models, because there was less out there. So someone saw it, they're like, yeah, that's real. So that actually went into my thought process. And, and then everybody thinks of their first like nice watch. And, inevitably, because of the collection, it always comes down to Rolex. Like, no matter what, whether we love it or hate it. Do you remember your first Rolex, Paul?
Oh yeah, I wanted one so badly, and we had no money. I was like 20. I don't know how old was I? Like 22 or something like that. And I wanted a date just with a white dial. Like, it hurt my skin. I wanted one so bad. And there was we were living in Edmonton, and there was a Rolex dealer there, and I would go in and harass them and just drool and look. And they were really, really nice to me, and they always let me look at them and that kind of stuff. But I couldn't afford one. And this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. And so eBay was starting to become a thing. And I discovered this brand called Tudor. And I was like, oh, this looks like Rolex. It's pretty darn close. And you could get them pretty cheap relative to a Rolex thing. At the time, they were like $500 for like a Prince Oyster date or something like that. And so I bought one, and I took it to the Rolex dealer, and I said, can you refinish the dial? Because it only came in that particular model. I could only get it in with a rhodium dial. And they said, sure, no problem. And so they refinished the dial, and they said, oh, you should probably have the watch serviced. Still haven't had it serviced, but it's still running. And that was my first kind of Rolex experience. And I really, really loved that watch. It was a great watch. I didn't have a bracelet for it. I wore it on a strap. And it wasn't until maybe, I think 2006 when I got my first actual Rolex. It was a date just. Originally, listen to this. So at the time, the 16710, the GMT Master 2, was on its way out. And so I went to a dealer, and they had one. They had an M serial, which was the last version of it. And it was a 3186 caliber. So it was that transitional model. They just made a few with the 3186 versus the 3185. Maybe I'm getting my caliber numbers wrong, but it was that. And he was it was a Pepsi, and he was going to throw in the black bezel and the Coke bezel, because back in the day, they had that. And I said, great. He gave me, I think, like a 15% discount on top of it. And I put down the money, and Gina, now you're in trouble. Because you said, no, I don't like the GMT. You should get it. You shouldn't get it. You should get something else. And so I switched for a date just with a salmon dial and Roman numerals. And so I lost the GMT. And in hindsight, that was such a bad move. But whatever. It was. I wore the date just
financially, but you preferred the other watch.
Yeah.
And
yeah, definitely.
And you still have the salmon dial?
I don't. I don't. It was one of I've sold 3 watches my entire life. That was one of the 3. I actually didn't sell it. I did a trade. That was.
I was a one watch person most of my life because I couldn't afford to have multiples. And so, or I couldn't in my head reason to put X amount of money into multiple watches. So from the beginning, if I was going to trade up or sideways or even go down, I always traded or sold my watches. And it was only, recent times that I even owned multiple watches. And I look back on it, and I have this list. I sat down, I made the list of every single watch I ever owned. The one thing they have in common, I wish I had all of them. All of them, I would have been much better off just keeping all of them. But look, I remember going to the store and seeing the Rainbow Daytona and saying, it's so ugly, but I love it. And they were like begging me, and I'm like, I don't have the money for this, but I would have been much better off. But in hindsight, we're all geniuses, But it's funny because we talked off air about I wrote a blog about finding my first car. And for a lot of us in any kind of hobbies, if we're like passionate about it, we look back on it and we say, oh, wow, I wish I had my first car. I wish I had my first watch, And for those people that were the lucky ones that were able to keep it or got an heirloom, it's the best feeling. And so what I do now is I may not get those items back, but when I do acquire something on the secondhand market, I find one with a story. I usually buy them from the original owner. I find out how they acquired it, why they're getting rid of it, what the story is. And I'm buying as much the seller and the story as I am buying the product at the end of the day.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I think that's the thing with wristwatches is they're sort of like a little companion, right? Like I still have my original Tudor. I still have that. And my first good watch that I bought was a Tissot, a PR50, which I still have. And then my first kind of good Swiss watch was actually my Breguet. And that, of course, is staying with me forever. So the Rolex was a little bit down the line when I got it, but it's still part of me that kind of regrets it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you wear them a lot.
So Gina, being married to a watch addict, illness person, do you share the watches together? Like, do you ever go into his collection and say, hey, can I strap this on tonight? I'm going out. Or do you start getting into it, acquiring your own pieces? How does that work as a married couple with a watch addict?
For the most part, I have my Apple Watch, and that's I'm a slave, unfortunately, to getting those stand moments and all that kind of stuff. So when we go out, though, I'll like change my watch. usually it's more like if he's like, oh, I'm going to sell something. I'm like, no, 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 we have to keep it because like this has, you know, like history and like his brigade, like as much as he doesn't want to sell it, like I would never let him sell it. And like the Hulk, he was kind of thinking, well, maybe we should sell it. But I'm like, no, I like it's mine now. So I've acquired that one out of his. But for the most part, like he'll let me wear anything I want, but they're more his than anything.
But do you start to develop your own collection then, or just or because you were in the Apple, you tend to only have like a few other pieces? Like how does that work?
Mostly I like just wear the Apple, and then I have a couple other pieces. It's kind of maybe on a wish list of eventually when you have way more money or different lifestyle, there's watches I would love to have that, you know, over years we've kind of like drooled over and kind of like, I call it dating. Like I'm in the fashion industry too. So I always call it dating a piece when customers come in over and over and over again to see it because they bring their family and it's kind of like this whole thing before they purchase. So I feel like I kind of have that relationship with some pieces, but that's more down the line. I would get like a brigade that we've seen, you know, in different cities that we kind of keep going back to and stuff like that. So, but it's more his thing than my thing.
So the illness does spread. Now you brought up an interesting point, which I didn't think we'd go there, but we will go there now, is this whole Apple Watch debate, because I've never owned an Apple Watch. And I've been asked a zillion times if whether I don't wear or own an Apple Watch because it's not a real watch and I have to keep it true to the timepieces. To be frank, like I'm not even wearing one. And I go through stretches, I don't want to wear a watch. And I go because I feel like if I don't wear a watch for a while and then all of a sudden I strap on a watch, it's like, oh, I love watches again. Oh, I haven't worn this piece. Like I feel like I have a new watch now. Whereas, you know, you wear a watch, you're like, oh, I'm so sick of it. I just want to throw it in the garbage now. And then I'm going to just sell it or trade it. No, just put it away. Don't think about it. That watch doesn't exist. And then it becomes a whole new watch. With the Apple Watch for me, because I'm a lawyer, I'm so connected as it is now. I feel like I'm going to be dominated with all those messages. And I like the freedom of the lack of the Apple Watch. That's why I do it. I understand there's so much health benefits with it and tracking and everything else, but I kind of like the freedom without the Apple Watch. That's why I choose it. Paul, do you wear an Apple Watch? What are your thoughts?
I don't. Actually, Gina, a couple of years ago, got me a Fitbit, believe it or not. And so I like it because it's super simple. I'm pretty, technology and I don't get along, especially some of the modern stuff. But this is great because I use it as a sleep monitor and I use it as a fitness tracker and I use it to track my heart rate and stuff like that. I know it's not the most accurate thing in the world, but it's nice because it has no notifications. I mean, I think you can set it up, but I've never done that. So it's kind of a nice alternative that I just wear it for specific activities. And it kind of fits and fills that niche for me without having to go full Apple Watch, full, you know, conform and be part of the hive mind type of thing.
I at one point got rid of any thought of a luxury watch. I got a digital watch and I said, I'm just going to be sporty and wear my digital watch and I'm done with it. And I did that for a couple of years and then the itch came back, you know, inevitably. So yeah. It's how it goes. Now, the watch you have on your wrist, and I did put in a special request because you know, as far as gateway to special watches, like, you know, you're a watch collector and aficionado when you know the models and the serials as far as the watch movements go, and like this is a 1675. I used to have a 1538. And for the average layman, 99% of us, including myself, do not know those numbers at all, Paul. So this is when you're lucky to be on one watch collector site. So I Canadian Watch Collector, CWC is where we met. But once you're on many sites and you know all the different numbers for all the different movements, this is now upper echelon stuff. So the watch you're wearing today, you know, I've never seen it out in the wild. Otherwise, I've seen it on the internet a lot. When you brought it on to the first time for our virtual meetings, I was absolutely blown away. Please take it away. Introduce your timepiece.
Yeah, thanks. So it's a brand that I'm particularly passionate about. I discovered the brand, gosh, I think 2008, 2009, when they had just started. I'm probably getting my dates wrong. And I hated them. I didn't think they were very nice at all. It didn't do anything for me. But the guy who started it was such a free spirit and a different thinker. And at the time, there was nobody doing anything like he did. And I think that was it. Like I misunderstood him at the beginning. But it always kind of stuck with me as such an interesting brand. And so the guy's name, for those who don't know, it's a guy named Max Busser, and the company's called MB&F. And MB&F has kind of two main lines. They have the horological machine line and the legacy machine line. And the horological machine line are really like kinetic art. They're really wild. They're out there. He takes inspiration from things like a bulldog or a spaceship or a race car or kind of whatever in his adolescent mind almost kind of just sees things and converts it to a watch. And they're really interesting. They're borderline unwearable, but they're amazing. And the legacy machine line is something a little more practical. They're actually round. They're a wearable size. They're not overly huge, some of them. And so that was kind of the niche where I found I could strike a balance between a watch I could actually wear and sort of the brand that I actually loved and found so much that I could relate and identify with. So this watch, I don't know if my camera is going to pick it up, but so it's an LM101. And this one particular one's in palladium, which was very, very serendipitous. So it has sort of this kind of seafoam green dial.
Let's see the back as well.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Very intrinsic. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I really, really, really wanted an LM101 because it's the smallest watch they make, and I don't have big wrists, so everything they make is 44 mils, and the LM101 is 40. So I really, really like that. I always wanted one. It just so happened that there was something happened in my life. I like to buy watches at mark occasions. Mm-hmm. So like the Breguet was kind of stems from a trip that Gina and I took. One of the other watches I picked up recently is a Lange & Son 1815 chronograph. I got that for our 15th wedding anniversary. We did a trip to Paris and that kind of stuff. So a lot of my watches have meaning, and this was to mark an event in my professional life. And so I knew I wanted to get one. I didn't know which one. There were a few different. This was before the LM101 and MB&F and the whole indie trend kind of went crazy. So you could actually still buy them. And so I actually gave there's two MB&F dealers in North America a call. So I called the one at the time anyway, I called the one in California, and they wouldn't give me the time of day. They said, oh, the only way to buy from us is to come in, and they wouldn't give me any information over the phone or anything like that. I called Cellini in New York, and they were much better. And I spoke to a salesman there, and he was actually pretty helpful, and he gave me some options. And so at the time it came in rose gold, white gold, and platinum. Those were the three options. And I really liked the white gold version, but I wasn't sure. And he said, oh, I can give you a deal on the platinum one, maybe, blah, 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 blah. And just how happened like that week, I saw, I think on Monochrome or something like that, there was a palladium version that was being released. And this is really something special because unlike the white gold and rose gold version, it was limited to 18 pieces. The platinum was 33, I think, or 31. This was 18.
1/8?
Yes, 1/8.
Okay.
They made 18 of them. And I thought it was interesting. Part of me, because I'm a bit of a cheap guy, thought it was a deal because it was priced the same as the rose gold and white gold versions, but palladium is more expensive than platinum, and it's just as difficult to work on as platinum. Plus, it was super limited, and it seemed like this is the no-brainer one to get. And I kind of hemmed and hawed for about 5 minutes, and I said, okay, let's do it. And it was a scary moment. And it was hard to get, frankly, because originally I wanted to go down and pick it up in person and go through that experience of going to the boutique and, seeing them and to take you out for lunch, all the kind of stuff with it. But at the time, you couldn't travel anymore. So it just ended up having to wait and kind of just ship it. And even getting it took almost close to a year, actually, to finally actually get the watch because it takes so long to produce. So MB&F, and I could be wrong here, only produces about 200 total watches a year. 200 to 300. I think they used to be almost 300, and then they tapered down their production intentionally. So they're pretty uncommon, and I'm really lucky. What's interesting about it is that of the 18, I probably know virtually, not in the real world, but through Instagram and that kind of stuff, I think 15 of the other Palladium owners. So there's sort of a little sub community of us, and there's like a few of them that have come up for sale. So I don't know who those three are, but the rest I kind of know, and we've all kind of met on Instagram, and there's sort of our own little gang of it.
It's called a support group.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And when we're going to therapies, when we're trying to get better, these are enablers. These are people that make you want to continue. Like, oh, you'd be stupid not to buy it. And when are we getting our next one? And I have that group of friends. I understand they're enablers, and they know who they are, and I enable people, and we just have that cycle. So I got to ask you, Gina, then how early on did you have to sit down with this guy and say, there's something called a budget and there's something called life and other expenses? So does he have a free pass? I trust you. Just go spend as you need to spend, or do we
I'm the
discuss major
enabler.
purchases?
I'm like, oh yeah, you should get it then. I mean, unless I don't like the watch, like that's why we had the big discussion about the original Rolex, because it's like, I don't like it, I don't really want you getting it. But if I like it, then I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. How much does it cost? And we kind of work it out. But I'm just as bad. So at least I don't have to worry about hiding anything. If more than anything, I'm like, you should buy it. Oh, I think it'll go up in value. Oh, you should buy it. So I'm just I'm just as bad.
Most married couples I know, it's only one of two routes. It's either forgiveness or permission, you know, where like, please, 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 is it okay if I buy this? You can buy that. Or we've had a good year. Come on. And they try to negotiate that, or they just go and buy it. They hide the box under the bed. They hide the credit card statement. And they're like, why is there 20,000 missing from our account? I don't know. I had to pay the mortgage maybe and some tax bills. I'm not sure. You know what? I bought that watch. I told you. I know I told you. Don't you remember that $20,000 watch I told you like 3 months ago? Like, I've heard those kind of conversations. Paul, you married an enabler. Wow, this is like the unicorn
Oops.
that I've heard of this, but I've never seen it in marriage form. This is fantastic.
They
So
exist.
wonderful. I'm so pleased. So you're enjoying life with the watch. How often does it go on the wrist, would you say, in a typical month? Is there such a thing as a typical month?
I wear it every Friday. It's my Friday watch, and when I'm on podcasts with special people like you. So it's a once a week thing. Usually through the weekend I'll wear it. The problem is I tend to I cook a lot and I have an aquarium, so my hands tend to be wet a lot of the time, and it's not a great watch for that. You know, it does have that one fatal flaw. So that's kind of the issue with it is from a practical point of view for me and my lifestyle. You know, that's a problem with any watch on a strap, which doesn't stop me because most of my watches are on straps. But
Mine
it's
as
a once
well.
a week
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. It's too special not to wear. And to me, I'm not that guy who buys a watch and then never, you know, you have those guys who buy and they put it in the safe and don't wear it. That's not me. I mean, I've got what, 1, 2, 5 watches on my desk right now that I'm kind of cycling through. So I have always so 6 watches kind of in my arm's length. So it gets quite a bit of wrist time.
So for those of you out there, if you've ever been on a watch collector website and you've ever seen BigFatPauli or heard about BigFatPauli, you know there's 3 brands essentially that he's associated with. He's the MB&F King, you know, the one that was able to bring it to the masses and show us what this watch is like, as we just saw now. Breguet, you're known for it as well in discussions. I was looking at one time, I remember, and then you wore it the next week to the get together. And I'm looking on your wrist and, you know, getting watch envy. And one of the things I found, like, seeing friends that wear the watch I want, that usually tends to push me over the edge quite a bit. As well, I get a lot of messages on internet boards about auctions and how FP Journe is an independent watchmaker and their prices are through the roof and they keep setting new records. And the biggest hater of FP Journe is on today. We could do a whole episode on this, but if you had to summarize for us in a minute or less why the dislike for FP Journe when all the watch collectors are fawning over FP Journe, please help us understand.
I don't know why people fawn over it. I think there is a lot of influence they have over watch communities through various methods. I think they're very, very good at controlling the messaging out there and the marketing and how people view them. I think they're very, very good at, frankly, I think a lot of people buy them as an investment, and that's their game. And I think it's sort of like you're guaranteed to make money on it if you buy it. So it makes it a lot easier to buy, which kind of feeds that hype. And I think like Rolex was impacted by that too. My issue with them is, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, is a lot of their complications just don't work. They just don't do what they say. The resonance, and we've had lots of discussions about this on various watch forums. I have yet to see proof of this working. And you see the videos of people posting metronomes on a table that sync up and they say, look, it works. That's fine, but your wrist moves. So if you put those metronomes on a table in a car and drive around the block, they're not syncing up. And that's why when you look at Philippe Dufour, when you look at MB&F, when you look at Grubel Forsey, when you look at other brands who've implemented a dual balance or dual escapement system, there's some sort of differential or something that actually connects them, or Armstrong with their they have a spring connector. I forget what they call it, but there's always something physically that connects those. FP Journe has nothing. And so you're relying on, I guess, magic. I mean, the other thing too is the centigraph is supposed to measure, and I think it's something like 1/10 or 1/100, whatever it is. It's supposed to measure something very, very fine amount of time. But the beat rate it only ticks 6 or 8 times per second, so you can't measure 1/10 of a second from it. And it's so funny. There's even a video on what is, I think, Watchbox with Tim Mosso, where even he's reviewing the watch, and he even kind of acknowledges that it doesn't really line up with how it works. And physically it can't. It's just not that accurate. So I think a lot of that stuff really irks me. I can get into it and go on and on and on, but right down to the why do they have safety screws on the case back? Who does that? Why do you have these weird, unique screws on your case back when they're not used anywhere else? When you look at a brand like Roman Gaultier, who has like these really interesting kind of S-shaped screws, the claim is that it reduces the torque when they're screwing them in, so it protects the screw, but those are used throughout the watch. FP Journe has security lockout screws on just the back. They want you to send it just to them for servicing, and that's not fair. You own the watch. So there's just so many things about the brand that don't sit with me. I started by wanting to buy one, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, is I actually wanted to buy a Chronomètre Souverain, and I called a dealer, and I was ready to go, and I started digging in, and that's when I sort of said, well, wait a minute, this is not what I thought, and that's when I turned. So anyway, that's long enough.
I gotta ask you, Gina, is there, some families, they have the swear jar, and every time you swear, you got to put money into the jar. Did it come to the point that you'd be driving in a car, you'd be in Paris, you'd be at an anniversary dinner, and you get to the point where you're like, okay, enough with FP Journe. Like, can he go one day without mentioning FP Journe? Like, does he have to have an FP Journe jar? So if he brings it up, he's got to put $1 in there. How does that work?
It goes in phases. Like if there's like something, like a lot of drama going on the watch forums, then it'll be like nonstop. But then it'll be like quiet for a bit, and then it'll go again. But it's not like it's a Tourette's. Like all of a sudden he'll just like shout it out or anything like that. So. But yes, definitely, and I know that's like FP Journe is one of the most talked about brands for sure. It used to be Richard Mille. That was another big one.
Oof, don't get me started, Richard Mille.
That's your trigger word.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I don't get Hublot either. But that's me. I don't know. But I'm not a rapper, so if we were rappers or football players, maybe we would get it better. But we're not.
Different story. We're not the market.
Correct. I remember dating a girl once, and she's like, I like your watches, but if you really want to impress somebody and you really want to get up in the world, I think you need to get a Hublot. And I'm like, I knew that relationship was doomed at that point. Like, what?
I think we need to start seeing other people.
I'm like, this isn't working. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know who I am? Like, no, this is not like my identity. Like, watches really define your identity at the end of the day. And like, I'm not a Hublot guy. It's just not going to happen. So, but on that token, when I do get an article on my feed and it's something about a record-breaking setting watch, FP Journe at an auction, I send it to Pauli right away because I just I love getting him going. Finishing off watch talk today before we get into fitness, I had to ask you, Paul, because there's not been a lot of talk amongst my group, but Omega, they have a couple of new interesting watches that came out: the Speedmaster Chrono Chime and the Olympic 1932 Chrono Chime. How much do those retail for approximately?
I think they're like $500,000. If fill in your currency, euro, Swiss franc, US dollars, not sure, but like a lot of money, like $500,000.
$500,000, 500,000 US dollars?
Yeah.
Okay, true story. And I saw they got launched. Gina, I see this ad. I'm like, oh, this is pretty neat. I like the whole chiming thing. I misread it. I thought it said 50,000. And I started debating in my mind, can I even justify it at 50? Like, I don't know. That seems like quite a bit. And then I'm like, wait a minute. That's not 50,000. That's 500,000. Imagine he comes home one day with one of these puppies. He's like, trust me, this thing's gonna go to $1 million one day. We're good to go. I would assume it's as long as he didn't put on the credit card, right?
Yeah, right. Well, then the points. Like here's the thing with that watch is it's such a okay. So first of all, I find every time Omega does something, the brand they're immediately compared to over and over and over again is Rolex. They're always like, oh, well, Rolex did ceramic bezels. Of course, Omega did. They're always kind of falling behind Rolex's kind of whatever they're setting. And one of the big criticisms and pros for Rolex is that they've never really done a complicated watch, which is pseudo truth, because the Yachtmaster 2 is actually a pretty complicated movement. It's very unique. It's I don't know of many watch movements out there that are like it. It's pretty cool. So they actually have done some complicated stuff. They haven't done traditionally complicated stuff like a perpetual calendar or a split second or a repeater fine. But here Omega did something that's kind of a statement piece, and they're saying we're going to do something that Rolex just won't do, has never done, never going to try. We're going to separate ourselves. And I think good on Omega, because it's them, I think, pushing themselves out of that shadow a bit. And it's time for them to do that. I think they deserve it. They're a wonderful brand. They make amazing pieces. They're getting more expensive now, but they were always super attainable and price wise and accessibility wise versus a Rolex. And so I think to me this is something really special. They're not going to sell a lot of these just based on sheer price alone, and I get that. This is a flex from a brand saying that we can. They didn't ask if they should. They asked if we could, and that was, I think, something really special for them.
It made me think of the Vulcan Cricket, where that's a watch that the presidents all used to wear once upon a time, and because it had like an alarm clock feature basically, and it sounded off, and I thought that was kind of neat. So that's the first watch I thought of when I saw this. Now Vulcan Cricket you can pick up for maybe $1,000 at the most. I think they're a few $100, most of them like $200 to $400. So they're not an expensive timepiece at all, but an interesting feature. I would sum up basically, if I had to compare Rolex and Omega, it's one thing I want to say Omega, but people yell at me all the time to say Omega. But
Omega, whatever.
Almost any Rolex, if you go look at it, it stands the test of time. Like you wear a 1970s Datejust and you keep it in good shape, you can tell people it's a 2000 or 2020, and most people will believe it until they actually feel the weight of it. But Omega, they make so many different lines and so many variations, and they discontinue stuff so quickly that I'm like, streamline this a little bit. Like, you're really, really good. Like, just let's focus on our bread and butter stuff. Let's get rid of all this excess trash and let's just like stick to the core. But anyways, they have their game plan, and we've talked about this ad nauseum that you have car brands and you have watch brands, and there's very few companies that own every single brand basically, and then they have their own agendas. So are they pushing one set of their brand, ignoring the other one? Whereas a company that has one brand and that's their focus. So that's, I think, why we gravitate more to companies that focus on a core brand versus one that owns like 20, 30 brands, and they have their the ones that they gets shuffled under the rug, so to speak. So that so that was the exciting news, I thought, in watches. Now, if you're gonna wear a nice watch, one of the nice things to do is to flex when you are wearing your watch. You're mentioning that, and to flex, it's really nice to have a trainer and somebody understands in it. So Paul has an in-house trainer. He's very, very lucky. Gina at Banana Split Squats. I love bananas. I am not a huge fan of banana splits. They're not really good for my waistline, but explain, and I'm not good at, and I'm learning squats. How did this name originate? So anybody wants to, work with you as far as a nutrition coach, a personal trainer, you're at Banana Split Squats. Where did you come up with that name, Gina? It's very original.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the harmony of dessert, banana splits, and split squats, which is my favorite love to hate exercise. So it kind of started as like a food blog where I got that name, where I was trying to show people like how to eat like kind of like your favorite foods in like a healthy way that would kind of fit, kind of like almost like a fit your macros kind of idea. So I kind of coined together that word, and that's kind of my handle from now on.
Were you always in the fitness nutrition world? Was this something from a very young age, or did this come later in life? Like, what was your journey? How did you come into this realm?
I mean, in high school and kind of like, I guess, early youth days, I did play sports, but that was more of kind of just like a social thing, like all my friends did. So I liked doing it. Like I played soccer and volleyball and basketball and things like that. But definitely going into like high school, like I was totally academic focused. I did have a gym membership, so my sister and I would kind of like go here and there. But like everybody, like in university, well, even in like my early like high school days, like I struggled with weight, and I lost weight because I had bad stomach problems and things like that. But then going back to university, you put back on the weight. We tried Weight Watchers, everything, like nothing worked. And then finally I went to like, at my gym, they said, well, here's this nutrition program that you can follow, because it was for free for us to kind of like have a consult. And so I went, and I came home, and I said to Paul, I'm like, I think I totally just got hoodwinked. Like, I signed up for this nutrition program, and they sold me some supplements, and like, I'm really sorry. I feel like I just like totally like just got like snowballed kind of thing, right? But shockingly, when you actually work with someone who knows what they're talking about, like the weight literally like melted off, because I was actually following like proper nutrition protocols. I mean, the supplements, it was vitamins and like CLA, and so it wasn't anything like silly. It was just kind of maybe overpriced kind of thing, right? But it was still stuff that like probably your body needed if you were following like a really poor North American diet. So literally, I just kept losing weight. And I mean, I actually have my original like measurement cards and weight cards, and within 1 year, I lost a third of my body weight. So yeah, and then I decided to. There was like this I don't know if you remember Oxygen magazine. It was kind of like really popular for women, and they were doing like this cover model search at the convention center. And I was like, oh well, you know what? I'm gonna go. I feel really good about myself, because I was like actually working out then, because you're thin, so you want to actually want to put on some muscle to kind of have some shape and stuff like that. So it's like, I feel really good about myself. I'm going to go to this cover model search. So I went, and it was at the exact same time as a bodybuilding competition. And I looked at myself, and I looked over at the other girls. I'm like, holy shit, I want to look like you guys. Like, what is this? So like, I didn't know that there was like bikini division or bodybuilding. Like, I was very ignorant. I just thought it was like the bodybuilders. I thought there was one division for men and for women, and everybody was like huge and jacked. So I was like, bikini, I'm like, that's interesting. Like, I want to look like that. So I kind of hemmed and hawed about it. And I decided to, like, right after the new year, hire a coach and sign up for my first show. And I said, I'm just going to do it. And that was 10 years ago. And now I'm an IFBB pro. So.
Bravo. And what was that conversation coming home and making the decision that you wanted to compete? Was Paul surprised at all, or how did he react?
Well, I mean, I kind of kept it to myself for a little bit. Like, I kind of did a little bit of research, and I was, I didn't really know. So I usually kind of do my homework, and I like to research things and kind of plan it out and stuff like that. And then I said, like, I really want to do this. Here's like what it looks like. Here's the shows. Like, he didn't know what any of it was either. Like, I mean, and no one understands the commitment it takes to be in that industry. So like, even then, after signing up, like, we're like, oh yeah, sure, I'm just going to do a show. And like, what's that entail? Okay. Like, oh, I'm going to diet and stuff like that. But lo and behold, it's this whole like life-changing experience. So, it was a lot of different like ups and downs. Like, I don't know how he felt like at the time. None of us knew that it was going to be such a time commitment and life changer. But, over time, we kind of made it work within our lifestyle. And yeah, it's definitely been kind of a game changer for both of us.
I can tell you that. Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, Gina's very pensive in her decisions. So, when she started doing it, I knew it wasn't something that just she decided on a whim. It was there was already a lot of research and that kind of stuff. And at the time, you don't know. You think, oh, maybe she'll do one show. Fine, go for it. You don't realize it's going to be a 10-year journey. But it's been good, because it's had a positive impact on me too. So, anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No, I was gonna say, it's funny because I'm listening to it and I'm in awe, because I did one show and I made a decision. I was supposed to go in the boxing ring and compete for charity boxing. So I was training for 2 years to do that, but I'm the world's worst boxer. So there's no skill, and it just, God did not give me that ability at all. So kept getting injured, and I thought to myself, this is not going to go very well. And somebody suggested, why don't you do fitness bodybuilding, because you got the body for the physique. And I was unsure, and then he showed me some videos, and I got really excited. And I had 6 or 7 trainers that by the showtime of people I was using for various things. And it was every day there was something to do, whether it's from an eating standpoint or a body standpoint, as far as getting ready, and then the routines. And it was a great experience. I loved it. And I medaled twice on my first show, which was really exciting. And then I said, I'm one and done. See y'all later. I'm not going to wax my body again. I am not going to spray tan myself. I cannot handle this. And there's nowhere to go but down for me. So I want to do it for lifestyle and maintenance because and the other thing I recall very vividly for myself, and you know, it's a really good community because, you know, we all get very close to the people we compete with and we make friends there. And I've made lifelong friends from competing from one show, is something I call the post-competition blues. And when I got off the stage the first time, the next day, and all those trainers are pretty much gone. I'm down to like 1 or 2 trainers now, and I'm not gearing up for that show anymore. I fell into a deep funk and depression for like a good month there. It was bad, like, because I didn't feel like what I was working for again. And I asked other people, I'm like, do you guys go through this stuff? And they're like, yeah, it's post competition blues. So have you ever experienced that? And you've seen it in the community, and how is it to ramp up for one show, go down, and then come back up again? How do you do that? Because you've done it for 10 years. I commend you for that.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest, honestly, is when you come off like a win and then you do your next show and then you don't place as well, then you're really in a funk and it gets soul crushing. So usually it's kind of like, yeah, you spend your weekend and you're miserable and you're really upset. But I usually kind of use that to kind of fuel like, okay, what am I supposed to work on so I can be better for my next show? And I think that's kind of one of the things that keeps me going, is it's kind of like, I'm just going to stop when I don't want to do it anymore. So it's kind of like, I'm thinking of my next show. I'm not thinking of like, oh, I'm done. Now what do I do? It's like, I'm done this show. So my next show, here's what I need to work on, kind of thing, whether it's my posing or whether it's like the shape or leanness or whatever it happens to be. So you've got like your game plan. And that's why I do think it's, even if you don't want to do as many shows as I do, because a lot of people, especially the men, like when you have to put on size, like one show a year is usually enough, unless you're doing a qualifying show, because you need the time, right? So I think it's important to have a trainer so that they give you the game plan for next time, right? Like you get out of that, I'm one and done and I'm just going to go back to my previous life. It's no, you're like, what are you doing now? Like, what are you doing to better yourself? So if you do transition to lifestyle, because a lot of girls do, obviously, like, I mean, very few are like me who stay in forever. It's, you know, what does it look like afterwards? And even I kind of say that to people who are like becoming pros, because some of them get the pro card and then stop. So it's like, you should have your game plan. Like, it's not like your life doesn't stop because the show stopped. Like, you have to think of like, how do you want to have your habits continue and help you in the rest of your life? Or like, what does your food look like? And it's almost like you should, if anything, look forward to it, because it's like, oh, you're your off season. Okay, that means you get to have more family time. That means you get to have more meals out. That means you don't have to do as much cardio. You can sleep better, all that kind of stuff. So it should be this, you know, rewarding process where I think a lot of people they're like you, like they think of all this hype and so much goes into it that once it's done, they're like, well, now what? So it gets easier over time as you develop strategies, but it takes a community. Like, that's why it is important, like you said, to have friends who go through it and can actually help you through it.
I'm now 3 years from my show time of when I competed, and I look in the mirror. I think I actually look younger and better now than I did at the show. So for me, I took it as a challenge to myself.
Mhm.
Let's make it a lifestyle. But on the same token of it, it's I'm a big proponent of having trainers, having professionals working with you, because there are people that tell me all the time. I hear this all the time. I've gone to the gyms, I got the membership. You know, I search online, I can't lose the weight, I can't gain muscle. My body form doesn't allow for it. And I tell them, no offense, but like, okay, what do you do for a living? Okay, what did you do for schooling and apprenticeship and all that? And you have experience. Great. You have zero schooling, zero experience in the realm of bodybuilding as far as fitness, as far as eating goes. Don't you think it makes sense then to let a professional go ahead with it? Because you'll spend less time, less aggravation, you'll have a focused game plan, and I think you'll more likely see results with it. Like, I can tell you, going to CrossFit, for example, with my trainer Jared, one session with him, I'm going to get way better results than if I went to the gym by myself 5, 6 times in a week, simply because it's good, focused work as far as what we're working on, what day, which order, how many reps, weights. We can't make those determinations if we don't have any experience or knowledge in that, in my opinion. So for people, I would say, that are very afraid of this or where to begin, I tell them, get a starting point, you know, ask around people that you know or in your community, and work with a trainer, whether it's for nutrition or fitness or both, and see, you know, because you develop a relationship, you develop a trust, right? Like with you and your clients, it starts to go beyond the client and service relationship. Friendships are born. Like there's trust there, there's respect, and when people see results, they're so grateful. That must be very gratifying for you as a professional to help others that way.
Yeah, I mean, I just love helping people make progress, and I want people to kind of like have a healthy relationship with food. I want them to like look forward to going to the gym. Like I don't want people to go and be like, oh crap, I have to go perform this workout. It should be like, maybe it's not your thing and maybe it's not your favorite hour of the day, but like at least when you leave, you'll feel like you accomplished something. So I hate when I go to the gym and I see people who are wasting their time or performing like exercises like with really bad form, because it's like if you had just maybe even just hired a trainer for a couple sessions could teach you basics, you would get so much more out of it. And that's why people don't see results, because it's like they're going in there and they are like literally just wasting their time. Like, I mean, okay, fine, you got a little bit of like your heart rate went up and you moved a little bit, which is probably better than sitting on your couch, but you could have so much more. Like, and then like you said, like then they're frustrated because they think it doesn't work for them. Like I don't believe that all these people who are obese out there or suffer all these problems, it's because they're like little magic genies and nothing works for them. Like it's obviously they just need a little bit more help. And I don't expect everybody to like love the gym and love fitness and stuff like that, but that's why I'm a trainer, because it's like I want you to go in there and like know what you're supposed to do for how many reps, get it done, get out, like get your work done, and you're better for it. Like you don't need to love the gym to have to go to the gym. Like I don't love brushing my teeth, but like I brush my teeth, right? So you just need to have guidance. And I think Paul is one of the perfect example of like hating the gym. He hated the gym. And it wasn't until he got into like a good rhythm of going like 3 days a week that was kind of like the perfect thing for him. And now he goes 5, 6 days a week. So it's just one of those things, like when you see results, it continues to motivate you to do better, to work harder, because now it does work for you. So you just kind of have to find, what's your motivation? Are you willing to put in the work and, suffer maybe in the beginning because it's uncomfortable to learn new things. But once you get familiar with how to move your body in these kind of ways, then you'll be so much better for it, right? And your life becomes easier. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, how easy is for you that like you can't walk up the stairs and you get winded? Like that's not good. Like I don't, people don't understand that these have ramifications in the rest of their life. I can't carry my groceries. An old man can't pick up his granddaughter. Like it's not just, oh, I can lift a lot of weight in the gym. It's that these are transferable skills so that you have like a healthy body and you sleep better at night. You don't have headaches. Your stomach doesn't hurt. Like you have energy. Like people are like, oh, I don't have energy to go to the gym at night. It actually gives you energy. So, you just kind of have to get over those mental like hurdles that you put in front of yourself.
So the way Paul reacts when somebody says the words FP Journe is the way I react when somebody says boot camps and quick fixes. I lose my mind.
Everyone wants a hack.
I don't have an issue with boot camps. It's okay. It's my issue is the people that go to the boot camps. Like I'm gonna do an intensive 1 week, 2 week boot camp, and I'm gonna fit in that dress. I'm gonna fit in that suit. But then what? Like, no, it's like I like lifestyle. When I've accepted it, like it's no different for me waking up and breathing and walking. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to yoga. And, these are conscious decisions I make for lifestyle. I love the idea of lifestyle, and it's a steady progress. Like you don't build Rome in a day, no matter how much a person weighs or how they look. When they do it gradually over time, professionally, they'll be amazed on how they can turn back the hands of time and feel better. I have a gentleman that really inspired me. I see him at yoga all the time. We've been practicing together for close to 10 years. And I asked him last week, actually, I said, Raymond, how old are you, out of curiosity? He goes, how old do I look? And I said, you're going to tell me you're a lot older than you are, but like body wise, you look like you're barely 50. He's 70, goes to yoga every day, pretty much. Doesn't go to the gym. That's fine. That's his choice. And what I'm finding with him is he can do all the movements. He can do, any of the stands, any of the crossovers with his legs, no issues whatsoever. And he told me when I came, and he came to yoga, I think before I did, but he was in his 60s or late 50s. He already started feeling the arthritis and his hands shaking, everything else. He's 70 now. He does not have that. It's gone away. All the shakes are gone. The brittleness. He can do whatever he wants. He's 70 years old. Like, you ask him to do 70 push-ups, he can do 70 push-ups in his sleep. And I told him, like, I see you. That inspires me. Like, I just turned 46. This is where I'm going to be at when I'm 70, when I'm 80. I refuse to go anywhere but. That's my lifestyle, and I love it. And I commend people that make that choice. And I'm so jealous, when I hear that you chose to do this for yourself, you made a profession from it, and you get to help others with it. It's so gratifying. And there's so, in our society, like, we are so programmed to go to our doctors and then go to the pharmacy and fix everything with pills and more pills and more pills, and pills are going to fix everything. And it's amazing when you choose to make eating and exercise changes in your routines, so much of that stuff can go away in preventative. And I'm not going with a whole holistic and hippie trend, but this is facts. Like, take care of your body, it'll take care of your mind, and it'll feed off of each other. That's how I see it.
For sure. And
Yeah,
I think
100%.
Yeah, go ahead, Tiffany.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, your body naturally gets addicted to stuff, I find. Like, whether it's sitting on the couch and watching TV every night, and like Gina mentioned earlier, I'm not athletic. I never had an interest, never liked going to the gym, never. But now I'm addicted to it. Just like if I don't shower first thing in the morning, my whole day, like, I cannot. But like, that's it. That's a non-negotiable. I have to shower in the morning. I have to. I'm addicted to it. And the same thing with going to the gym. Like, I get up in the morning, I do my yoga, I spin, shower. In the afternoon, I do my weights and that kind of stuff. So like, it once you get in the habit of it, it really becomes just part of your life cycle or lifestyle. And I think people struggle to kind of get into it because it's hard. It's like when you start running, like, your first run's awful. Like, it's terrible. You're winded. You feel like crap. It's your lungs hurt, your legs hurt, everything hurts. But if you stick with it, after a couple weeks into it, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty great. You get like a euphoric kind of high from it, and you want to keep running. But you got to get over that hurdle. And I think it's hard to do that. But the people who make that commitment to actually do it, once they get addicted to fitness, it's hugely powerful because it's not work. You want to go to the gym.
Well, it's even like food cues are very similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why it's actually much easier to control your hunger if you're one of those people who eats at regularly set times during the day. Like, that's why all of a sudden, if you eat a little bit later, you're like ravenous all of a sudden because you've trained your mind to think that way. So, even just little things you can do without having to have like food control your life or give up. People are always like, oh, I don't have time for this, and I love food too much. All these different little things, like tropes they like to throw. But simple little strategies and habits make it a lifestyle for you, and it's easy to just build on them over time. Like, you you said, you don't have to do everything all in one day. And I think that's the biggest mistake people think, is they want a crash diet, they want a quick fix, they want it like done like right now. This is not Amazon Prime delivery. Like, it takes time.
And I mentioned people, like, people tell me, like, oh, you must have always looked like this. Like, it's, I'm not like you. It comes natural to you. And I'm like, really? You want to see pictures of what I looked like 10 years ago? And they're like, that's not you. And I'm like, yes, it was. Because I was on a Philly cheesesteak, poutine, Sprite diet. That's what I ate, like, every day. Like, unlimited Sprite, giant Philly cheesesteak sandwich, heaping poutine. You do that every day for a few months, catches up with you. And don't think that any of the meals were healthy. Like, this is all in line with it. But like, because I wasn't in a good place mentally, so food was my crutch. They made me feel good for a few minutes, and then it made me feel worse. And the worse I would feel, I need to get more food to make me try to feel better. Like any kind of addiction, it's like I literally saw myself as like a food addict, so to speak. And when I worked with professionals, for me, and I've tried variations on so much stuff, but like, I go to sleep at night, and I said to myself, okay, so your game plan is, you're eating every 3 hours. So you're going to eat at 7 a.m., 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m. And what we're going to plan here? It's so easy because I just go off the schedule and everything is prepackaged for myself. Like, I pre-portion it, and life is so simple, and you have to do less thinking, versus people that I see, Gina, I see this all the time, especially in professional offices. They don't eat. They don't bring food with them to the office. They didn't have enough time to prepare anything. So they go the whole day without eating. And they're like, oh, I'm going to lose a ton of weight now because I'm not eating. Look at me. Or they're really hangry. And then they inevitably go to get quick takeout because they need to quickly, get something into their system. And they don't want to prepare it, ahead of time. And I tell them why, there's little tricks in the trade, and, somebody can help you put a plan together, but there are people just resistant to it until, inevitably the doctor comes to them and says to them, you have no choice. You're going, I was there. Doctor said, you're going to go on cholesterol meds and you're probably going to be on there your whole life. And I'm like, no way, man. I'm in my early 30s. Are you nuts? It's going to destroy my liver. He's like, well, there's no choice. It's hereditary. There's no way fixing it. I'm like, watch me. And I just went to yoga, started learning the gym, and started eating better, but I had that moment. If I didn't have that moment with the doctor, I probably would have kept it going for quite a while. And unfortunately, for some people, when they have a heart attack, they have diabetes, strokes, it could be too late at that point. I wish people would think ahead to what they're doing to themselves and the damage they're causing to themselves. We can prevent a lot of this if we just practice better habits early on.
Yeah. And really, I mean, there's so many like meal services out there that actually will, like, if you're super busy, like, I get that. And you just, or like maybe you live in a small condo with a small kitchen and to do the food prep and stuff like that. Like there's services out there that will kind of, you just select how much protein, what you want for, like, say, sweet potato or rice, or what veggies you want. And they have it, they'll deliver it for you. So, like, I mean, there's so many easy options that if you're busy, if you want something that's convenient, like, there's a lot of different things you can do. And I mean, I've meal prepped in a very small condo, but you just have to be like, you just have to organize yourself. And I'm sorry, you're going to spend 10 minutes in line at Starbucks to get your banana bread and your venti frappuccino. Like, that's time that you could have saved by just grabbing something out of your freezer in the morning, kind of thing, right? Like, it's not a time thing. It's just people allocate their resources differently. And they're using food, like you said, as therapy and as a crutch for the most part.
All right, that's my second set off, is not just the boot camps, but the lack of time. And I tell them, okay, hold on a minute here. Tell me, what CEO of what organization do you run? Are you president of or prime minister of a country? Sorry, what do you do? And a lot of these people, they come to me, I don't have kids. I have a 9-to-5 job. I tell them, all you have is time. Are you kidding me? And no matter how busy you are, I don't care if you have 3 jobs, it's not a lack of time, it's a lack of priorities. I say that every time. And then I always give that example. How much time did you spend watching TV last week? How much time did you spend watching TV yesterday? Oh, you watched TV for 3 hours yesterday. Wonderful. You could have half an hour of that gone and done anything, even prep a little bit, put it into the freezer in your little packets, and then unfreeze them the night before, right? There's so many ways. Nobody is working 24/7 generally. Yeah. So there's always kind of a fix. There's a thing to it. So now you made this, Gina, you made this choice for yourself. When did you decide that you're going to do this for others? Like, what point did the light bulb go over in your head? You're saying, you know what, I can do this as far as assisting others and helping others. Was that early on? Was that later on? How did that come for you to make this into a profession for yourself?
Well, originally I took a personal training certification just so that, because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing properly in the gym as well. So like, I had a coach who would give me like a workout program, but I wanted to make sure that like I knew how to properly execute the exercises and things like that. And then it was just, people kept asking me questions like, oh, how do you do this? And what do you suggest for this? And I found that I really liked helping them. So, over time, I just thought of like different ways that I could do that, as far as like, should I offer like nutrition programs? Should I offer like workout programs? Like, what do people actually like really want, really need? What makes it like actually work for them? Like, I've never coached actually competitors. Like, I could do the programming for them as far as like, workouts go, but I wouldn't do that just because for me, like, you have to kind of be all in that aspect. And I really like lifestyle. Like, I like helping people, like, who aren't these as neurotic as I am. Like, I want people to just see those nice, easy wins to make it a really good lifestyle for them. And I do like the coaching aspect of it, because you can go and, get, all these like diet apps and stuff like that that will tell you, oh, you eat this and eat that, and then it'll adjust your calories for you and stuff like that. But it's not that the person wouldn't lose weight if they ate that. It's that they have all these hurdles, right? Like, I was at a party and I ate this instead, or how do I do this? And oh, this machine was busy at the gym. What should I do instead? Like, I like help coaching people through the problems. And, like you said, you develop a relationship with them and you're kind of like have a friendship. And so I found that really, really rewarding. And that's kind of how I've built my business around it.
And you're hinting as far as the biggest mistakes people make, and we can make a series of episodes on the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to exercise and nutrition. But if you had to sum up some very common ones that you're seeing in the industry, what would you say are some mistakes that people are making that they can easily avoid?
I think the all or nothing mentality is like, either I'm all in, I'm 100% on my diet, 100% of my thing, or like I'm just going to throw it all out the window and, and forget about it. Like, if you had one flat tire, would you slash all the rest of your tires? Like, no, like, you don't just go on like a binge fest because you ate like, a piece of pie or something like that at Thanksgiving. Like, you're allowed to have a life. So I think people not focusing on like, I'm all in, or like, I don't even care and I'm just gonna like throw it out the window. I think, to me, that's the biggest mistake they make. Because a lot of times people are gonna sign up, they're like, oh, I need to go on a cleanse. I'm like, a cleanse? I'm gonna go on a cleanse before I start my diet. I'm like, so you're gonna diet before you start your diet? And they're like, yes. I'm like, no, let's just start. Like, start small. Let's build from there. Like, you don't need to go like learn to exercise before you exercise. Like, it doesn't make sense. I think that's the biggest thing.
Even something silly, it sounds silly, but it's true. Like, if you decide one day I'm going to make one change in my diet today, I'm going to take one bad thing out and I'm putting one good thing in. That's all I'm going to do. And tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. You're still doing all those bad habits, but you've changed one thing. Then eventually that becomes two things and three things. It's that slow mentality of it. But I know that all or nothing mentality. And it's funny because if you really think about this now, personally, professionally, that all or nothing mentality can transpire to every facet of life. How many people are in jobs that they can't stand, that they're like, I don't feel fulfilled whatsoever, but you know what? I've gone this far already, so it's too late for me. I'll just keep doing it. Why? Why can't tomorrow be an opportunity for change? Like, I used to hate myself when I had a bad meal and I like had too much dessert. I would punish myself in my mind for days about it. I'm like, why'd you do that? You ruined everything. Now where are we going to begin again? And now I let it go. And then the next morning, I'm like, today's a fresh opportunity. I can start again. I get to practice this yet again. And so every day is an opportunity for something new. And I hear this all the time from people, and I'm seeing it in every facet. And, if people think that their eating habits or exercise habits don't transpire to the rest of their lives, they're sorely mistaken. I think that it fits into everything. In this room right now, I think we got 3 type A people. I think we can agree on it. The things we're really into and really disciplined. It's really hard to teach people discipline. So if that doesn't come natural to you, I don't think you have to give up hope. I think you just need more planning and more guidance.
Exactly. And that's why you hire someone who can help you navigate through that. Like, I've been overweight, I've had health problems. Like, this does not come easy to me. So, I can help you through it. Or I've seen people who have similar situations as you that I learned through my clients, right? Like, that's why I'm always encouraging everyone to be open. And I ask a lot of questions. If you fell off your meal plan, why? Like, oh, okay. Like, so how do we so next time that happens, like, how do we work through that? So then not only do I learn from their situation, help them, but then for the next person, that I can transfer that knowledge.
And now, as we sum up today's episode, we got, believe it or not, New Year's is not that far from around the corner right now. And how we've heard this every single year. New year, it's going to be a new approach. It's going to be different this year. Every other year I say that, but this year is the one that's going to be different. When people think about that, because you go to any gym January 1st and on for the first few days, it is packed, right? Go to Popeyes or any of the supplement stores, they're packed. And people want to start off the new year right. So, and I commend them for it. I kind of say tongue in cheek, obviously, but I think I have a love-hate relationship with New Year's resolutions, but I think it's good to set yourself a benchmark of where you think you want to go, but I don't like just that big goal. I like to have those steps as well, that it's actually going to be attainable. I don't want to keep coming every year, the same New Year's resolution, but I never made any progress. I did nothing about it. So on that token, for people that are saying, you know what, I want to eat healthier, I want to look better, I want to exercise. Gina, coming to these people now and saying, okay, New Year's is coming. How do we help them make those resolutions and then actually make them sustainable so they'll actually perform them, in your estimation?
I mean, I think you really need to focus on the actions. Don't think I want to lose 10 pounds. Think I want to do my 10,000 steps per day. So have the actual actions that support over time what you want to do. And like we keep saying, start small. So whether it's just adding protein to every single one of my meals today, or having the extra glass of water today, or taking out like the one bag of chips that I was going to eat and putting in an apple. Like, start little things, and don't do that all every day. Like, don't do that all at once, but like each week kind of progress yourself so that it's something that you can actually make over time. So make it as in a lifestyle. Don't think of like, I'm going to crash diet because I want to lose that weight. Think of, what do I want to do so that I can lose the weight but maintain it afterwards? Or even if it's, say, like a lifting goal, like, say, because not everyone wants to lose weight, some people just want to get stronger and things like that. So how do I set myself up so that I can like do these little things eventually to get whatever, your bench press, your squat, your deadlift, whatever it is, to grow that? Like, you have to think small steps. You're not just going to walk into the gym and throw like 150 pounds on the bar and I'm going to squat that. Like, no, you've got to work up to it. So you have to think of everything like that it's like the little habits build themselves over time. So I think just small things, focus on the actions, and just be mindful. Like, even just if you journaled what you ate every single day, you're probably going to be less likely to have that extra little thing, because you're going to have to write it down. Or you didn't realize that all these extra little things that you were having, like the extra ketchup or barbecue sauce or oil or almonds, all those little things, you didn't realize you were eating all that. So it's like, oh yeah, I did eat that today. So maybe tomorrow you'll make a better choice. And like I said, every day is a new day to start again.
And what about setting yourself up, saying, let's say, for the next year, I'm going to go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. I'm going to eat better. And I have ideas in my mind where I want to be at, but I'm gonna let that go. I'm just gonna enjoy the process, like you're saying. And then when I reach the 1 year mark and I've hit it, I look better, I feel better, I can go reward myself with a Rolex.
Improve that. I think it's a great idea.
Calorie free. It's a calorie free reward. I like that.
There's a big movement towards and people, acknowledging their accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not enough of that in our society. All kidding aside. And when Paul was mentioning about it, I was thinking about it because he had landmark milestones and he rewards himself, with a watch each time. But for a lot of people out there, when you work really, really hard and everything, savor those accomplishments. Don't feel sheltered. Like, tell friends, tell family, feel good about yourself. And feel that ability to reward yourself. You don't have to reward yourself with cheesecake per se, but maybe something you had your eye on and saying, what, I don't know if I really want that or if I can really, justify it, but you know what, I earned that. And there's reading about this is the more you reward yourself, the more likely you are to keep it up and even go ahead of it. If you don't reward yourself, eventually you're going to burn out. So for all those people out there that reach their fitness goals, their nutrition goals, savor it. People are proud of you, and be proud of yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, and I think more people need to spend more time actively focusing on the positive. I think it's very, very easy for people to get into this sort of tailspin spiral where everything's bad and everything's negative, and especially when you turn on the TV and everything's bad. And it's really important, I think, to actively work to try to cut a lot of that out and focus on what is good, even if it's something small, even if it's a sunny day out. Every morning for me, I always try to find something I'm grateful for. And whatever it is, it could be anything. It could be that I can stand without pain. It could be that because one of the things, you get up sometimes, say you throw your back out and you say, oh my God, my back hurts so badly. It's kind of all encompassing, but we never take a moment to get up and say, hey, my back doesn't hurt. And it's actually kind of a blessing to be able to do that. So I think when people spend more time actively just kind of being mindful of the good in their life, because there is a lot of good when you look in everyone's life. And I think that could have a very, very positive impact on a lot of people, just being cognizant of it.
I love that. And there are, for a lot of us, that, we paint ourselves with stories that we paint in our own minds and punish ourselves for no reason. We are so lucky to be alive. There's so many people out there that are not alive or are in pain or dying that would take our spaces in a second if they had that option. So really think how grateful we are and should be for everything we have at the end of the day. And I can tell you both that when I close my eyes at night to go to sleep and I wake up, I think about what kind of life I want. And I can tell you all, nutrition, exercise, watches, I'm happy. I don't ask for much. So
yeah, no, for me, it's a three-legged stool. It's my health, because if I don't have my health, you really don't have anything. Second is relationships in my life and the people, and making space for the right people, and not having space for the wrong people. And then the third is, a distant third, is finances, right? Because then it gives you the ability to take the time to spend with those people. Being healthy can cost money. Chicken is more expensive than craft dinner, for example. So that, it's the kind of the enabler, right? So I think it's having those things. I agree with you very much, Jonathan.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to enable all of us as far as making good decisions and living the lives that we want to live. That's why it's called The Chosen Life. So on that token, it's beautiful to see high school sweethearts, that brought success into the world and inspire others and enjoying their lives. And you both are great role models. So aside from Paul getting to know you through the watch collecting website, CWC, and becoming friends, Gina, now we're friends. And we're all friends. It's beautiful to get to know positive people. And thank you for inspiring me and inspiring the listeners today as far as their journeys go. And again, we welcome everybody's questions and comments, and we'll pass it along. And you never know, you'll make it. Those questions may make it to future episodes. And, at the end, this is why it is called The Chosen Life. Think about the life you want to live and choose the life that you want.
Thanks for having us, Jonathan. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you both.
Thank
and
you
as
so
we sum
much.
up, thank you. And as we sum up, we do the flex. So we pull out the arms and we say, you can pull up your arms. And you're like, keep living the chosen life.